Hi everybody, hope you're all having a great day. I'm having a great day. This is a scene from the entrance to the Ferrers Gallery. I painted that once before, with, if you remember, the old lady with the chess set. So this is the entrance to the, I call it the Ferrers Gallery. It's not the Ferrers Gallery. There is a gallery inside here, but I guess it's like it's called the Ferrers Craft Centre or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, it's all getting very autumnal and the leaves are beginning to change. So this is the painting I come up with. So let's have a look at how I did it. This is painted in Artrage 6. I've got a canvas 4000 by 4000 pixels. It's 300 dpi and I'm using a rough canvas. The reference picture, I'm not using the reference tool in the app. I much prefer to use the use a separate monitor to put the reference image and I can get a nice big picture then. But I put it in a place where it's not going to interfere with what you can see I'm doing. It just covers up one or two of the brushes I select, but I'm going to tell you what they are as I go anyway. So I begin with just a regular roller, just to crash on some blocky colours. I then use the flat oil brush or the flat paintbrush from the oil palettes to add the colour to the sky. And then I use a palette knife, and it's one I haven't used before. It's called Instant Blur. And I just use that to soften off the skies in such a way as if you imagine if you was doing real oil paint, not real oil painting, it's all real. If you was doing traditional oil painting, you would use a dry brush, a big brush. I've seen some people use like decorators' paste brushes just to softly drag the bristles over the colour to soften it very subtly. So that was the kind of effect I was trying to get with that on the sky. And then I went back to the regular paintbrush again. Just no, not the thick oil brush, just the regular one, so that I could get the main items in the painting. I didn't want thick paint getting in the way. At this point, I feel that the thick paint can interfere with what you're trying to do, and you start thinking about the strokes of the thick paint rather than the shapes I'm painting. So I just like to use the normal square brush to start with, and I use that to get in, make sure I've got all the sort of architectural shapes roughly right. I think my building might be a little bit bigger than in the photograph because I couldn't get the end building in, so I'd sort of zoomed in slightly, but that's okay. I was happy with that where it was going. So I put in some warm colour into the ground. I wanted to sort of get this nice warm feeling of the sort of last of the summer sun bouncing off the ground, and then some of the green for shadows, which is reflected out of the leaves of the trees. And then I sort of put in these little sort of strokes leading up towards a building in the distance, just sort of really random rough strokes really. Then I'm putting in the architectural features of the main building, the windows, the sort of arched doorways and the shutter doors that lock over those at night. Adding one or two more walls, putting in some shadows on those walls as well, because that's important. That you got to remember that the trees are blocking out the sun, putting these mottled shadows on the walls, which all add to the sort of the mood and the feeling that this is a nice sun-drenched scene, I guess. I then go in and decide that at this point I need to sharpen up the detail. Quite often when I'm painting on my Cintiq 16, it is a small screen and things look okay. But when I put them onto a larger monitor, everything looks a little bit sloppy. So what I've done, I've zoomed in and started to tighten up the detail a little bit. I'm not talking crazy detail and photographic or anything like that, but just so it looks like I'm a little bit more in control of the brush strokes than not really. And I do think it makes a huge difference to the final painting. Getting in the posts, so you can see I'm avoiding putting in these people at any cost. I'm sort of I'm going to put some in, but I was toying with the idea of leaving it like this. I thought it's quite a nice scene without the people, but in the end I felt that it is a sort of a tourist attraction, and it's a craft centre where there's sort of artists, jewellery makers, there's art galleries, picture framers, and all sorts going off. So I thought we needed some people in there. So here we go. I start painting them in. Now this, I've now created a second layer because I knew that I would be changing the size of the people I'd want to. And there we go. I've just sort of erased that one, which was dead easy because I could just sort of use the eraser and rub the person out, rather than having to keep clicking the undo key or ruining what's underneath. So I do like to paint the people on a separate layer. It just makes life so much easier, really. But I'm not using blend modes or anything like that. I'm just using regular colour to put these people in. But you do see that, if you notice, from time to time, I will paint a little bit of the background around those people as well on that layer, even though it's on a separate layer. I did struggle a little bit with the characters till I got into the feel of it. I don't know why. I don't know if I've not been doing many for a week or two. I'm not sure. But the first two characters, I did sort of felt that, and this one as well, it was took a bit to drag it out of me, really. And then I sort of got a grip and thought, come on, Steve, concentrate, think what you're doing, take your time. And then it all came together, and it was okay after that, at that point. But initially, it did seem didn't seem natural for me to. Sometimes I could just get the figures in with one quick flick of a brush, and there's a leg in there and an arm and everything, and it all comes together really well. This time it felt as though it was a bit more laboured, and it took me a bit longer to get them in. But, you know, in the end, I got there, and I was quite happy with the end results. I don't put all the figures in. See, I've resized them a little bit. I do tend to paint figures on the small side, and then have to resize them. Maybe I should spend a bit more time drawing. Here's a prime example. This guy, I'm thinking, yeah, it looks okay. But look where I finished his legs. They're just way too high. They should be below that path. So I've got this sort of really small guy in the foreground. So I do obviously enlarge it. When I sort of zoom out and look at the thing later, I realise my mistake, and it's because I'm sort of concentrating on the figure and not sort of comparing all the relationships between that figure and the surrounding area and the background that's around it. So even then, I don't think I've noticed it yet. I'm using the thick oil brush now, by the way. I decided that I wanted to get some of those thick oil strokes into the clothes, sort of following the contours of the folds in the jackets and things. And then I start looking at the photo a lot closer and putting in, there's like sort of sculptures outside to the entrance to the centre of this sort of rusty Tin Man type character, and there's some sort of stag or something like that. Working on the leaves on the walls again, or the shadows of the leaves on the walls, putting a bit of texture in that sort of entrance way. And then here, look, I suddenly realised that I've made that guy way too small and put him in a little bit bigger, and then decided to actually finish him off because I hadn't painted one of his arms. The other characters, the other 4 people in the painting, I felt were just a distraction. They were too far over to the left. Didn't need them in the painting at all. so I decided to leave them out. I go back in, now I'm back in with the thick oil paint, just adding some texture to the leaves. I felt that certainly helps out. Painting in some highlights in the sky through the leaves as well. And I've still got sort of two layers going now, but I've got the original painting, and I've got the layer with the people on, but I signed it and then added some more detail to the leaves. So at that point, I do flatten it down because I want to try softening off the edges of the people so they don't look like they've been cut out and stuck on. And I go in with the palette knife, and I'm using the hard out edge palette knife just to smudge off some of the edges and add a kind of a painterly look, a more natural look to the some of the edges. And I go over the edges of the people as well, just sort of adding some finishing touches. I sort of dip back to the paintbrush, put a few more brush strokes in. No multiply layer used in this one at all. I was very happy with the whole thing. And there we go. That is it. That's my painting of the entrance to the Ferrers Craft Centre at Staunton Harold. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up as always is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I have lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.